talk us through conceptually, because when you talk about sustainability, what keeps coming to the back of my mind is scarcity. It's almost like they two sides of a coin, right? Some would say, well, folks was doing that because it was never enough. And you was always scared that you would run out of something, so you would need some backup. Almost like the people who hunker down because they think it's about to be the end of the world. Not that extreme. But I'm curious, is there a relationship between sustainability and scarcity, or is it just a mindset thing of how you think about it?
Looking for the ultimate conversation on Black innovation and wealth creation?
Look no further. From Chains to Links brings together some of the top Black entrepreneurs, academics, creatives, and futurists
To discuss how we reimagine Black community.
and build a collective vision for true Black prosperity.
So get ready. We're about to go there.
Hey everybody, welcome to From Chains to Links, the Innovation Podcast. I am Kelly Burton and I'm the CEO of Black Innovation Alliance. I am so excited to be joined by my sister from another mister, Ifeoma Ike. Even though sometimes I'm like Ifeoma, I hear people say Ifeoma and Ifeoma, and I call you Iffy. Do you have a preference?
Ifeoma or Ify?
I need to work on the E.
If
and
we're
the
going to be
Ify.
really Black on this podcast, then it's going to have to be Ifeoma or
Ifeoma.
Ify. Like Sade.
Yes.
But not, because they're not even the same letters.
Well, you know, Kelly doesn't carry a lot of zhuzh.
We can give you another name.
Okay, can we? Because I've always wanted another name.
What area in the world makes you feel happy?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Okay.
Hey, Dominique.
Okay, now I want another name.
You want another name?
What's up?
Hey, Dominique Drakeford.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
You want
Can't
another name
complain.
too?
Yeah, just call me Earth.
Listen. Okay, so
Kelly, you have to pick something at least temporary.
I know,
'cause
okay.
Kelly's not Earth, Ify, and Kelly.
And Kelly.
It's
It
not-
just
Yeah.
it don't go. Okay, so real quick. Okay, side note, because I'll take us down a rabbit hole. But I was watching the documentary on American Gladiators on Netflix.
I've watched that, like Muscle, whatever.
Yes. And they have names like Sky. I'm like, ooh. So maybe I'll be Sky today.
I mean, my daughter is Sequoia Rain
Oh,
elements, and my son is Sage Masego.
Okay, you
very
already ahead of the
earthy.
game. You already ahead of the game. I just need to catch up. I'm so excited to be having this conversation today. This is this concept of From Chains to Links. If you want to give them a little bit of backstory, how do we get here?
Oh gosh. So the real conversation was around starting with like the Black innovation ecosystem. How we challenge ourselves as to like, how is it different? What are we really trying to change? What are we trying to disrupt? For people that are listening, if you don't know, the Black Innovation Alliance has this collective mission, and collective is a key word as to how is it that Black innovators, entrepreneurs, creatives really forge their way together to build a space that is really, really for us, by us, not to like use that term loosely, but then it's like we also recognize we practice it now. And in some ways, the society that we're in has us forget that we're practicing it now, and it also kind of shapes us to do things in a very individualistic type of a way. So the concept of actually building an ecosystem is in itself an aspiration against the system that wants us to do things like unicorns. And we all are like, we hate unicorns. Like, I like unicorns because I grew up with like My Little Pony. So like I have a personal thing for unicorns, but like the concept of like constant competition as the way to like succeed, it hasn't worked for us. So we were kind of vibing. We were just talking. And, I just be opening my mouth and I was like, yeah, because I don't know why we fighting with each other, because the reality is we all have a similar bondage. It's either our cousins or it's our ancestors. Like, we hear From Chains to Links, and everybody was like, oh, and y'all need, like.
Of course you can't, you poet.
She just dropped
but
mics.
it wasn't
She just be having
necessarily
mics in
supposed
her
to be a
pocket that she just-
podcast. We're gonna put that on like our team, our beautiful team members at Carbon Thread and Kelly's Mind and Studio J. Lauren. Next thing I know, I look on the Slack and everybody's like, so this podcast that we're doing.
I know that's right.
That's what you get.
I know that's right.
You don't
we
get
were
to be
just
that
talking.
brilliant.
We were just
That's
talking.
what you get.
Yes.
I thought we were just talking. And that's actually how From Chains to Links actually came about. But it's true. Like, I think that the challenge that we're trying to give each other is like, where are the spaces that we can like honor and call out that we're not trying to build something, that we are it and we're building it. But there is a difference between like being a creative and working in collaboration with each other.
Absolutely.
And creating that kind of a village versus like all of us are dope and hashtag Black excellence. There's a difference. I don't got no issue with the latter. I'm just saying there's a difference.
Yes, there is indeed a difference.
Can y'all catch my voice when I'm still whispering? Okay.
Yes, it's hot too. I like it. So Dominique, tell us. I'm so curious. I want to know a little bit more about you, but like the beginnings. Where are your people from?
Where are my people from? Okay. So on the surface, I was born in Seattle, Washington. A lot of people don't know that because I rep Oakland so hard, but I was raised in Oakland, California, East Oakland to be exact. My dad is from Brooklyn, Brownsville. My mom is from Seattle, Washington. And now I'm in these Brooklyn streets. But my family, from a cultural diasporic perspective, I don't know. I'm Afro-Indigenous to American soil. I don't know where my roots are, whether they're from the Caribbean, whether they're from Africana, whether it's somewhere on American Turtle Island soil. So my heritage as of now is Black Afro-American, and I identify very strongly with the Black Panthers of Oakland. So I claim the Oakland cultural aspect very heavily.
I love it. Ify, where your people from?
My people are from Nigeria.
Yes, they are.
We are Igbo. And we are in Nigeria. We are in the southern part of the country. But I mean, one of the things that we also recognize is that like Nigeria as a country was made up by the colonizers. So, Africans on the continent are naturally nomadic people. So it's very interesting. I just had this recent conversation with my mother to see if they were interested in ways that don't necessarily require them to trade their DNA to institutions, if they were interested in finding out the other parts of the continent that they are from. You can look at people and see, like, my mom and I have similar features. Our digits are smaller, for example, than like my father. And I'm just curious as to like, I wonder if there's like some other indigenous communities or tribes that we may be connected to, because it's literally just me and her. Like, y'all got those extra long toes. I used to think that was weird. I was like, why is everybody else's toes so long? And then I realized we're probably missing a knuckle in our toes. And I was like, we're the ones that we have small toes. And it's just my mom and I. So I think I like to think of like where people are from as like beyond the line or the territory. It's just cool what you can like see in similarities when you look at people's faces or noses or cheekbones or whatever. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Where are your people from?
My people from North Philadelphia.
Born and raised.
I ain't say north. I said north.
PH.
North
Well, we from Trenton, so.
Yeah. But I'm told that my people are from South Carolina, and there's this whole story about how my maiden name is Felder, and in this town in South Carolina, there are white Felders and black Felders. And they all, but Felder ain't, that's what, German, Jewish. So you know the story. It's a very common tale.
What I will say, I know we got a lot to cover, but it makes me think about the fact that the lack of traceability to our roots in that way has been one of the most successful tools of colonization and unsustainability.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
but here's the thing, what I've been thinking about for a minute. It's the same thing for white people, because they can't trace their lineage neither.
And they don't want to.
But my question is, part of it is, like, that is the trade-off with whiteness, right? your ancestors arrived here from Italy or Scotland or Ireland, and the trade-off was y'all leave all of that across the ocean, your language, your religion, your heritage, your traditions, and you're going to trade it in for this white card, and this white card is going to take you to the front of the line. But you got to leave all that other stuff behind. And I think a lot of white people can't trace their lineage either. And that's something that I think is quintessential to this New World experience that we haven't really wrestled with, because there's a lot of trauma in that, like across the board. And I think we as Black people have a lot more visibility into it because we understand the power of race in ways that white people just do not. I know, I'm sorry, I took us down a rabbit hole. But to your point, when did you first know you were Black in America?
That's a deep ass question. Let me preface that by saying in Oakland, where I grew up, I went to an all Black elementary school. I'm talking about we learned Kwanzaa all the way to composting in a predominantly Black space, Black teachers. My village, I lived in a middle class to potentially upper class community in Oakland. My village was Black soccer team, Black swimming team, all Black everything before it was even, coined that. And so Blackness was so entrenched in my DNA, like having a village and tribe mindset was so ingrained in how I grew up and my approach to everything without even knowing it. I didn't realize that there was this Black framing until I left elementary school and had to go to a predominantly white middle school. Now, that's when I started to conceptualize this ideology of Black. Now, Black American, taking it a step further, isn't truly until I left Oakland. And I feel like, yeah, it gets deep. So I divided it. There's this, when did you realize you were, Black? But then when you realize you're Black American, it's not till I left Oakland, because I felt even in predominantly white spaces, when I left elementary school in Oakland, I still didn't feel the necessary pressures of being an American, because the ecosystem of the Black Panthers live, that community engagement, that creativity, those cultural economics still were in the ethos of Oakland growing up. And so once I stepped out and came to New York, and I'm not obviously shitting on New York, but I didn't vibrate in my Blackness, my Black Americanness, the beauty of it, the joy of it, the dopeness of it, as high once I left and settled here. And so that's when I realized.
Yeah, I said wow because there's like Black American and then there's Black in America.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're akin and they overlap, but they're not the same. And I said wow because especially in law school, I remember somebody trying to explain. I had a classmate who was from Rwanda, and people were really trying to drill down to her, well, when you come here, you're Black, like this whole concept of, which is a whole separate conversation as to how the different experiences within the diaspora and like when people identify with the Black experience here. But she described it in a way that's similar to how my mom describes it, which is like when everything around you is Black, you don't necessarily see yourself as Black because your reference point is that everyone is you, right?
Right.
Like, and within that space, that means there's still some people you fuck with, you don't fuck with.
Absolutely.
Like there's a range of
Absolutely.
the personhood, but it's not on the range of like the color spectrum and then the things that come as a result of the color spectrum. And so when you said that when I left Oakland, and we don't talk enough about that there are spaces that are also spaces of abundance that exist in villages that are here, that when people leave, that's when the awareness of both Black American or Black in America hits you, because there's also this layer, there's this thing that people aspire to, which is in being American, but there's actually something that it feels like kind of got, it's almost like the covering of Blackness left you when you left Oakland. And now it's like, oh shit, I'm in America. Like I was in my village, and now I'm in America.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's just very interesting how you describe that.
Absolutely. And also what's interesting too is trying to find other Black Americans in a place where the diversity of Blackness is so rich here.
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting experience as well. And I'm coming thinking, you black, we all Black. There was no division of Blackness to me. And so coming here and realizing that there were divisions of Blackness was an interesting experience, and that was the culture shock for me. That was one of the most interesting culture shocks, because I know a lot of people get the question, where are you from? I'm from Oakland. No, but where are you from? Oh, I'm from Oakland. And so those conversations intercommunally became very interesting. But I digress. But we do need to have those conversations more within our various tribes.
And that's the purpose of From Chains to Links.
Yes.
For us to have those hard conversations that we need to have, because there are certain, our inability to have these conversations has us stuck. And I feel like in the Black community, there's this sense that at some point we need to have like a family reunion where we all meet in Idaho or something, and we close the door so that white folks don't hear what we talking about. That's why we struggle to have these conversations in open space like social media, because we so scared that white folks gonna peek in and hear us working through our mess. But it's like, we got to figure it out.
We do. We need to have interdisciplinary conversations.
We have to. So I want to hear more about your work around sustainability. Iffy, I think you.
Well, I wanted to.
Or do you want to linger here a little bit?
Well, I wanna kind of. It's almost like Black to the Future a bit. And I want to talk about broadly, because this is an innovation podcast, and in some ways we're already talking about culturally and subculturally how we innovate, or how even differences have been innovated as a result of Black. Like when you talk about going into a space and Black people identify themselves as also belonging to villages, but belonging to villages as a form of separation at times, as versus linking as a form of connectivity. And that is not any fault. That's just the design of Black versus Blackness, which is very interesting. Because Blackness, I feel like when I hear Black, it's like, it's who we are. Some of it, what's been labeled on us, and some of it is just who we are.
Absolutely.
And then Blackness is like how we jump rope, how we connect. How we, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you talk about the Black card, but I'm like, it's really the Blackness card.
It is.
When I feel Blackness, that's like cocoa butter, that's shade. That's like, I can laugh, we can do Uno.
A universal language, for sure.
It's universal.
It's a spirit, a language.
It is.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
I want to know, is it generational though? Because
why you say that?
Y'all know these little Black, brown babies being brought up in the middle class environments. Oftentimes when they are the only little Black thing in their school. And I think about the tweens in my life who are raised in predominantly white spaces. There's little about their experience that in any way mimics how I grew up. And it's not to say that it should, like how I grew up is a normative thing, but it is to say, should I be concerned that really you just interested in anime and K-pop? You know, and I would say that a lot of middle-class Black folks are raising little kids that they in anime and K-pop. Again, it ain't a bad thing, but I don't think they know the Black national anthem. I don't think that they know they Black, heroes, their history. I don't think they know how to jump rope, jacks, Uno.
Dang.
I think they know Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, Dungeons and Dragons always been a thing. It depends. Depending on the disposition of the person.
Ain't nothing wrong with it. But I mean, when I think about quintessentially Black, that doesn't surface to the top. But then, is that even a fair conversation to have?
But I don't know. Oh, child, not the quintessentially Black. Not right now. Because see, this is the thing. I think, throw these questions away. I think quintessentially Black is an invention, and it is also subjective as hell.
Yes, 100.
But what I am hearing from you, though, is I do think there are certain things that you feel like are the must-haves that they ain't having. They're not having.
Cards are getting revoked left and right.
And she revoking them. These are queens, right? Like they haven't even been their
She
brains.
said K-pop revoked.
It's a whole economic development model built on Motown, and we ain't getting no coins off of that. But that's a whole other conversation.
And also, if we can be honest, I'm going to parse a little bit because we both Jersey girls.
Yes.
And you said middle class. I think there's also something about poor Black folks that experience so much of the majority, and this is my opinion, the majority of the negative disparities of Blackness.
Yes.
But also are the ones that are in spaces of forced creativity because of poverty.
Yes.
So in some of it is looking at folks that you feel like these fools got everything and they ain't made no syrup sandwiches, a Black innovation. They haven't made no cheese tortilla.
They don't know nothing about nothing about no grape Kool-Aid or no red Kool-Aid.
Well, they should know that. But that's exposure. Why are you not exposed? So you just watch these tweens in your space and you don't help them out? You just leave them out to the wild?
Leave them out to the wild, having a
A lot of these kids are probably seeing this through social media, which is weird, and not experiencing it. Like, what?
Yeah. I think that's
Granny's
right.
plastic on the couch. You didn't experience that?
No, you didn't experience that.
Oh, Granny's plastic on the couch. You wake up, your thighs be sweating.
Sweating.
That's sweating. The thought of it makes my thighs sweat right now. Okay?
I didn't like it.
You didn't sit in mama's lap and get your hair yanked
Oh, you did not.
and scalp grease?
My grandmother lived in North Philadelphia, so when it was hot, you went outside and you turned on the fire hose. Somebody uncle turned on the fire hose and you just sat in the middle of the street and played with little plastic potato chip bags.
Absolutely.
And threw them at your cousins because they was water balloons. And you just. That was your water
That was
park.
your entertainment.
Yeah.
That was your entertainment. They don't know nothing about that. Turning on the fire hose.
We also
having
didn't
Black parties.
We also didn't know that they were actually saving their electric bill because we definitely didn't come back in the house before 5 o'clock. Everybody
And
was
nobody is
outside.
A lot of it was resourcefulness and sustainability before.
So let's get into the sustainability, right? So very broad question, because I like to think this conversation is about sustainability as a birthright, innovation as a birthright. So even when you hear that juicy title, right? Do you consider sustainability a birthright? What is your relationship?
Absolutely.
What is our relationship to sustainability?
Absolutely. Blackness is synonymous with sustainability. So all of the things that you were talking about with regards to the cultural relics of how we grew up, virtually all of that is sustainability. From hair care, skin care, reusing, upcycling, hand-me-downing, joy, all of double dutching. All of these are formed, saving plastic bags in the junk drawer under the sink.
To this day.
To this day.
I don't use my trash can today
Using
because
it
the trash
to-
goes in the bag.
Correct.
And it's on the doorknob.
Correct.
Absolutely. All of these.
You bring out the trash
on
can
the
when you have
doorknob.
company.
Just the other
I want them
day,
to think you-
I took the plastic bag because I didn't have a head cap.
Yeah.
So the plastic bag was for my conditioner to condition the scalp follicles. You feel me? And so all of these experiences from the past to present are sustainability, and it is absolutely our birthright that we must reclaim. And that, I feel like, is one of the most important conversations. We need to reclaim the trauma aspects of our cultural experience as well as the joyous aspects. And all of that is this beautiful lasagna of sustainability. And I think if we start to almost reprogram our thinking that, liberation and justice and, social economic infrastructure, like all of that we are fighting for organically and also intentionally, that is synonymous with sustainable justice, sustainability, and it is absolutely our birthright.
Dominique, I'm curious. Kind of talk us through conceptually, because when you talk about sustainability, what keeps coming to the back of my mind is scarcity. It's almost like they two sides of a coin, right? Some would say, well, folks was doing that because it was never enough. And you was always scared that you would run out of something, so you would need some backup. Almost like the people who hunker down because they think it's about to be the end of the world. Not that extreme. But I'm curious, is there a relationship between sustainability and scarcity, or is it just a mindset thing of how you think about it?
100%. Scarcity is a huge pillar of sustainability. And it goes back to what I was talking about regarding being resourceful, right? So if we're conserving water because it'll save money on a bill, it's also going to help conserve water, which is a scarce resource. Right?
Yep.
So a lot of times it's all about how we frame it and how we contextualize it and how we give texture to the word or the ideology.
So in some respects, scarcity is not, sometimes scarcity is a reality, because I think we currently live in a moment where anytime you see a scarcity mindset, it's a negative thing. We live in abundance, right? And so what I'm hearing you saying, and get me right if not, that in some instances, scarcity is a reality.
Absolutely. I would say in a lot of incidents, scarcity is a reality.
And if I could add to that, it also sounds like the way we've messed with these words is that for a lot of, in a capitalist society, abundance also means consumption. And that's where the friction is, right? That part of the reason why, especially with the movement that you lead with Sustainability Brooklyn, where we talk about fast fashion, or we're talking about the toxic dyes, or we're talking about the sweatshops, all of this is to continue creating what people quote unquote want, which is abundance.
Yeah.
And abundance we've equated with consumption.
Right.
The flip side is we technically should have a society where there's enough water and enough food for everyone, but these things that
enough and quality,
yes. And then and access.
Yes.
We technically should have those things,
Yes.
i.e. equity, but there is a friction between our desire to be to live, and we were talking about IG earlier, to live and in some ways to show like we live in an abundance versus really like respecting our resources as abundant for all, but also scarce.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yes.
to be protected, not scarce as in we should be afraid,
No.
but scarce as in what can we do to coexist with our society
Yes.
with what we have.
Yes.
And I feel like that's where the sustainability from a justice perspective versus the sustainability from this very nouveau fashion perspective. That's where I see the difference in what you all are innovating versus the industry of sustainability, which I would love for you to touch on, how sustainability increasingly becomes a niche space that we get pushed out of when you've already laid the foundation that but we created, it's synonymous with Blackness. So why are we not there? Why are we not in that space to be leading that work? Not even just at the table, but to be leading the conversation.
Yeah. To echo what you were saying, yes, just let's be crystal clear. A lot of times our community frames scarcity mindset as negative. And in this regard, I think we need to think of scarcity mindset as being abundant because we are living in kin with our natural world. We're living in kin with each other. And we're creating really beautiful, regenerative ecosystems that's very much rooted in culture. So you're tethering this idea of being scarce, but being scarce to live abundantly. And I think folks don't talk about sustainability like that at all.
I think that's right.
We actually trying to run away from the scarce, them scarce moments.
Right?
It's some of what we talked about.
Yes.
Is like when we talk, even when we look at these young people, if we're honest, I'll speak for myself. It's the trauma of blackness that
Yeah.
I'm like, you ain't gone through black yet. You know what I mean? You ain't gone through this yet. The flip side is we go through these weird twisted pipelines to think that we also have to acquire certain things to show that like I am no longer living in scarcity.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is very different
Yeah.
than like, wow, minimalism actually helps me breathe better. It helps me think better.
Yeah.
We don't think about the psychology of it until it's too late, but we get a lot of stuff. I mean, if we're going to be honest,
Right.
stuff is also what's kind of like competing against really appreciating that scarcity or living a
Okay,
sustainable.
I'm about to fuck your head up real quick.
Are you about to fuck my head?
So
Oh, shit.
minimalism, yes. I think having less, consuming less is a very beautiful thing, right? There, you know, we're contributing less to production to toxic production models. We have less in our way to distract us and disrupt our flow.
Right.
But I think it also causes for a conversation of maximalism, because I'm pro maximalism and sustainability too, because I also want to give praise to folks who have collected stuff from their ancestors, from their grandma,
I see.
from different, life experiences that bring them joy, that keep them grounded. So that is also a form of sustainability, right? It's not necessarily that they went out and just started buying hella shit and were meaningless.
Right.
There are ways to have a lot of stuff, not be a minimalist, have a lot of stuff, but have it be intentional and meaningful. And keep you and your family and the next generation grounded. Because you've been in, your auntie who got the mud cloths over here and the
They collect some weird
everything.
stuff.
They would mess with my feng
But
shui.
there's power. There's sustainable power in that. And so I know we fall into these very monolithic, very tunnel vision conversations like sustainability equals minimalism. Nah, I'm trying to get us to really have a paradigm shift in understanding that the various versions of blackness and how we show up, whether it's minimal or whether it's maximal, they're both intrinsically important, and they both are rooted in our DNA to develop better sustainable systems.
This is wild. Because as you're talking, I'm thinking of all the wild shit our relatives collect. And it's weird. It could be the auntie that has mugs with just cats on it.
Yeah.
Oh Lord Jesus.
Or
I mean, you may not personally be a fan, because I'm not a fan of all of my auntie's relics. Like, Lord Jesus, you got to get rid of some of this. But
yeah, I mean, right. Like, it has meaning to the person.
It has meaning to the person.
When people, I struggle too with the whole, like, I love the conversation of where your people from, but it's also a struggle as somebody who was born here. And did not grow up where my people were from. And so the thing that connects me to where my people are from are actually my dad's records. Like, even when we didn't have anything, when my dad has a crazy record collection, and you can see the records if you were to line them up by years as to like the experience before I was born, the experience when, like, his spiritual experience, the experience of the good old 80s, shout out to Billy Ocean, like just this like arc of like, if it wasn't for his collection of stuff, that actually may have been a hard question to ask me as far as like, where are your people from?
Yeah.
Because I would have been able to point to maybe a region, but not necessarily an experience. And I understand his experience more, and he is a musician, as like what it was to in some ways trade being a musician to like be an immigrant in America, right? But it's the one thing that he never stopped collecting was music.
And the minimalist narrative would be like, no, you only need 2 records.
Exactly.
Right? And so I want us just continuing to encourage us to unlearn some of these frameworks of what white sustainability has been teaching us.
You said that so strong, white.
Yeah, I'm not with the
My
shit.
teeth felt clean.
Earlier in the conversation, you referenced Turtle Island, which Native people believe that's kind of their origin story. Not all, but there are many Native communities that believe, the story of Sky Mother, and Sky Mother fell from the sky into the sea, onto the back of the turtle, and the turtle grew, and the turtle is what we call America today, right? Turtle, hence Turtle Island. I've been doing some research for a book that I'm working on, and the Iroquois Confederacy, which is the most long-standing democracy, longer than our democracy, oldest democracy in the Western Hemisphere that we are aware of. Iroquois Confederacy believes that when you're making a decision, it has to make sense, not just for the current generation, but for 7 generations forward. And I thought that was such a powerful concept, this notion of only making decisions that will have positive implications, not for your children, not for your grandchildren or your children's children, but their children's 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 children. And I feel that there's so much to learn, because the current way, the way that we approach life is like the opposite of that in Western culture. It's like, what's good for me right now, which I think is the ugly side of liberty. It's all about me and what I want right now. It has nothing to do with the collective. And so I'm curious, what are some kind of philosophical principles that might help us to really ground in a thinking around sustainability and what we as a community need to model?
So I believe wholeheartedly that there is importance in the individual as well as the community collective, but there has to be a bridge to both, right? And I know, individualism is definitely not part of our ancestral lineage. But I think in today's society, when we're looking at this kaleidoscope of ecosystems, there's an internal ecosystem, right? That we have to acknowledge, that we have to build a relationship with, and that is individual sustainability, that we have to understand, whether that is our breath, whether that is our personal health, whether that is anything that's going on that builds who you are and how you take up space is important. So the individualism bit of sustainability is crucial. I don't want to, be one of those people who's like, yeah, fuck individualism. And, I think there's space for that. Now, that individualism, that individual sustainability and tending to your internal ecosystem has to directly connect with the community ecosystem. So you have to understand whether you have to take an ethnographic approach to understand what's going on in your circle of influence. The outside ecosystems, you have to connect with them, right? You have to connect with them spiritually, you have to connect with them physically, and you have to be intentional about what that bridge looks like, what it feels like, the texture of it. All of that is important. And so I don't have necessarily, a philosophy around it, but I think it is equally important to focus on individual ecosystem in a way that bridges to collective ecosystems.
It sounds like you're talking a lot about practice, right?
Yeah.
A lot of sustainability is about how you practice it. And what I love about that individual ecosystem, like something just shifted for me, because I do think that when you are working so hard to separate yourself from the practices of white dominant culture, we have been, for those of us that subscribe to that, there is a bit of running away from yourself that happens, or at least running away from the wanting to, other than like self-care, which I even struggle with that. I think we've had a conversation about how I struggle with that term a little bit at times, because where I'm leaning towards with like community care is it doesn't erase the self, but it does mean that I am also part of community.
Yeah.
And then the being and the wellness of myself matters also to community. Like I have to believe that it matters to community, and that community also is invested in how individuals are doing when they're by themselves. And I do think that sustainability broadly is something that as a people, we really do master and practice. We just don't necessarily call it out, nor do we like congratulate each other for like taking care of themselves. Even as we're talking about innovation, there's so many different, I'm so curious as to the many different ways people are like being sustainable on a daily basis. That
just had a thought.
Aren't like just aren't even acknowledged for not even just their genius and their survival, but also the way that the community benefits from them individually being well. And that's just like, as you were talking, I was just like, that's actually something that is not necessarily being brought out as like leading again, a part of the conversation.
As you were speaking, I had thoughts about my birth. I wasn't going to get into this, but I'm going to tap into it just a little bit because I think it aligns with a lot of what we've been discussing. For folks who don't know, I had 2 at-home births, unmedicated, low intervention, 2 years ago, and then again 2 months ago. And I consider my birth one of the most sustainable collaborations that I've ever done, right? And I think it's important that I frame it as a collaboration because it's one of the few things, it's the start of practice. It's the start of a practice that I've been able to, experience and go through that bridged the past, present, and future. I collaborated with my ancestors. I collaborated with myself and, my fiance and my sister and my community. And then I collaborated with the future, which were my children, right? And so it was this very circular moment of bridging past, present, and future. And it made me think like, yes, oh yeah, I need to congratulate myself, to Snoop. I want to thank me for doing me.
Child, you popped out 2 babies from
No, absolutely,
from
absolutely. I'm about to,
with no medication.
Hey, I did that shit.
I congratulate you publicly.
A lot of people, actually, nobody can tell me a damn thing virtually about anything.
No.
At that point.
No.
At that point.
Like
but,
your vagina needs a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm so serious. If vaginas could talk.
If vaginas could sing, baby. You feel me? If vaginas could sing.
Hallelujah.
Okay. All right. Look at me. Listen. Don't tempt me.
I'm telling you.
Don't tempt me. And you know it's going to start off with some Missy Elliott in the background.
We can trademark that.
It's yours.
It's yours.
It's your, okay. But
its own language.
Word. But nah, it was just, I don't know, a case study, an example, however you want to frame it, of a collaborative, sustainable moment that transcends moments. But it was an example of how we need to congratulate ourselves. What does collaboration look like? How can this be a catalyst for the next generation? Like, I talk about my home birth specifically for Black folks who want to potentially engage in alternative experiences of birth that connect past, present, and future, right? And so there's moments like that I think are so beautiful, but they can be an example for circularity that, again, is so much, the Black birthing experiences are so much rooted in Blackness and sustainability. And it goes back to the conversation we had. Almost everything that we do is sustainable, and it's about reclaiming that, because the mainstream sustainability space has not only tried to snatch our birthright of sustainability from us, they've tried to manipulate us into thinking that it's not who we are. It's more, it's deeper than just erasure, right? Erasure is a fucked up action, but erasure on top of manipulation is what we need to understand when we're looking at sustainability discourse and Blackness. And we are in a pivotal point right now. Like the world is fucked. And I'm not trying to be on some scare tactics, but it is beyond time for us to reclaim sustainability for environmental justice. And I'm not just talking about the environment, like the air quality, the water quality. Environmental justice also embodies how police treat us, how we treat each other, wellness, well-being. It encompasses what we eat. It encompasses, what brings us joy. It encompasses triggers and traumas. It's not just the environment in a sense of the atmosphere.
Yeah, when you share that birthing story, and this is like before you get on your what we call the soapbox moment. There's a reason why we call this podcast an innovation podcast and not necessarily an invention podcast. Because I think when people think of innovation, and oftentimes with what gets rewarded is what people invent, and I put that in air quotes, or what people think they're inventing, which oftentimes they're Columbusing, but that's a separate conversation. But as we're talking about sustainability, innovation and sustainability go hand in hand, because they're really about how people organically respond to their environments, well or not, and at least attempt to make it well. Like when I think about how, I'm gonna be very controversial right now, even when I think about the various tools that people use to keep their communities safe, through another lens, you can look at it like gun violence. You can look at it like gangs. To somebody else's definition, they're looking at it as protection. They're looking at it as, I'm responding to the fact that there isn't protection here. Now, I'm not an advocate for the violence. I am saying that people do innovate based off of the resources that they have. And sustainability is also about the going back in full circle, what people have in their environment to survive.
Absolutely.
And that's where this conversation that we've been having about abundance, scarcity, these are all really important conversations to have, because there is a policy component as to like people, when we talk about even these large global conversations around sustainability, which have really deep implications for femfolk, really deep implications for the global South, they're often responding to being in really harmful conditions, not because they want to. They're in spaces that they have to respond to what the environment allows them to respond to. So in some ways, even the conversation around whether it's minimalism or maximalism, it is still about what you have access to.
Absolutely.
Right? What you can actually enjoy. And I really honor that you had a community and a tribe to actually innovate what you needed to innovate, for even if it's just to serve as a model for your children. Because without those models of sustainability, or at least calling out sustainability, it can be really, really, really difficult to know that like this is actually a practice that can be a both and. As Kelly mentioned, it could be a practice of scarcity, and it could also be a practice of sustainability, as to like we are responding and doing the best we can with what we got. Shout out to Mariah Carey. Shout out to Mariah Carey. And I wanted to, as we wrap, I wanted to like allow you to get into whether you call it a soapbox or a standing message as to how you want listeners to know, as far as like not just about Black innovation, but also Black liberation. Like what is the thread between that sustainability, innovation, liberation? What does that feel like for you? What feels right for you?
I think I want to broaden the scope of innovation as it relates to sustainability. I want Black folks all over, no matter if you listen to K-pop or not. I want Black folks in all of your texturedness, to know and go through some portals of education to know that we are innovation, right? We are technology in the most rawest sense, right? I'm always back and forth between ancestors and present day, but our ancestors, their hands, when they're growing food, technology. Our intellectual property to come up with ways that we can protect our community, technology. When somebody creates a shea butter that's gonna heal our skin, technology. When we are trying to come up with ways to put food on the table due to scarcity, technology. I think it's so important to, again, desensitize and unlearn what we thought we knew about sustainability and say, fuck what mainstream white Western Eurocentric BS has been telling us about sustainability and has been making us feel absent and excluded from the conversation, and really find ways to understand how you are technologically savvy, whether it's with your body or through intellectual property, and then begin to create a personal and community-oriented rubric that makes sense for your not only survival, but joy. I know we talk about survival a lot in Black spaces, and that's very because of trauma. But we also have to tether survival with joy, especially when we're talking about sustainability. There is no liberation if the fibers aren't woven into what makes us happy and what continues to heal us. So I say all of that to say we have to create unapologetic rubrics for what sustainability means to us, what it feels like to us. Create a song, a vagina monologue of what sustainability means to you and to community. And you will see that it is beautiful and it's healing and it's not what you thought it was. And so I can go on, but we'll leave there. Yeah, Ashe for real.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We do want you to share with people.
Yes.
Where they can find you and where they can get to you.
Yes.
But right after that, I definitely have to ask you, who is your favorite Black innovator?
Oh,
Past,
okay.
present, real?
What's first, my contacts or my
Start with contacts.
Okay. You can easily have some access to me through social media, Instagram in particular. My handle is Dominique, Dominique, Drakeford, Drakeford. And then we'll leave it at that. And I also have DominiqueDrakeford.com, website under construction. You can connect with me there or through the organization that I co-founded with Whitney, Sustainable Brooklyn. That's the Instagram handle is Sustainable BK. You can contact me there as well.
Favorite Black innovator?
My favorite Black...
Real or fictional?
Real or fictional?
Alive or dead?
I have several because I'm multi-dimensional. But at the top of my list, without question, is Missy Elliott. Missy Mother effing Elliott is one of my favorite innovators coming straight from Virginia. She has transcended the industry and was a nucleus in my early years of sustainable development, in self-discovery, in finding moments of joy. And she told me that I can unapologetically be myself. Like, she directly told me. Okay, she didn't directly tell me, but she told me through her energy, through spirit, that I can be myself in this sustainability space, because a lot of the space is very cream. A lot of the space, especially when we're talking about sustainable fashion, which is my wheelhouse, it looked one way. Like, in order to be in sustainable fashion, you have to wear browns and tans and greens, and that's it. Nah, hip hop culture is very much sustainable as fuck. And so Missy, one day we're gonna collab.
I mean, her first video, she was in a trash bag and a hair comb helmet. So it don't get more sustainable.
Look,
it don't get more sustainable than that.
Missy,
I'm so dead ass.
No, but for real.
Like, and was a full-figured woman.
And was a full-figured woman.
And short,
with brown skin,
thick lips, everything. Missy really is our icon. We don't do enough.
We don't do enough.
We're not right.
We don't do enough.
Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you.
Appreciate so much, Dominique.
Thank you.
All that you do and all that you mean.
Thank you. Thank y'all for all that you do and all that you are.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for this episode of From Chains to Links. I hope you got something out of it and will join us for our next episode. In the meantime, you can find us at blackinnovationalliance.com. Peace.
Hey, everybody. Hope you loved the episode as much as we did.
Join us at blackinnovationalliance.com to continue the conversation. And remember to subscribe, like,
and share the podcast as we continue to build the movement
for true Black prosperity.